ALTBAYS Show brought to you by ALTBAYS.nz. This is a space for conversations. We bring cool people to chat. It's a non-judgmental space where we can discuss good ideas and have a laugh. And of course, there's space for some thought-provoking chats. Why not? Okay, if you are watching us right now, it's because you are on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel. It really helps the team when you hit that subscribe button. There's also a join button under your screen. If you want to donate some dollars to the team, we appreciate that. We are also on all the main audio platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. If you prefer listening to us while you're taking the dog for a cruise or that bushwalk, you don't have to watch it. Am I selling well, Tony?
Yeah, you're selling it, mate.
Good, thank you.
I'm sold.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we got a new listener. We are on all the social media platforms, obviously Facebook, Instagram, and the Madhouse TikTok, where we upload the clips. So if you don't have time to watch the whole show, you can go there and enjoy some clips of these conversations. Okay? It's been a good day. It was my last day at work. Can I have some... my paid job, right? Because this one never stops. Thank you. Like it was not enough, ALTBAYS, now our media group is releasing a new local magazine in January. Coromandel, it's coming. So if you guys are in the Coromandel for summer, you will definitely see Coromandel around the cafes and all the main retails in town. The whole Coromandel we're covering with a beautiful collaborative project. So if you would like to write for the magazine or if you would like to advertise, we really appreciate your support. It's a beautiful work that we're putting together, and I understand the skeptical people that want to see the magazine first, so wait for Christmas and then you give us a call. Okay? I have the pleasure tonight to talk to Mr. Tony IOTUA-MARSTERS. Did I say it right?
Hey, got it right the first time.
How are you, my man?
Good, mate. You good?
Thanks for coming.
No worries.
We always see each other at the singing places, at the karaoke's.
Is that because you're following me around? Or?
Because I follow you around, because I can hear you from far, and I'm like, I gotta go, Tony's singing. I gotta go. It's a big passion, isn't it, for you?
Yeah. Quite a passion with a bit of stress relief involved. You know, release the pressure, have a bit of fun, have a few laughs, have a few beers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it something that comes from the family, like mum and dad would be into singing? And
my dad was into the drinking part. Mum was quite musical. Played the guitar on the radio back in the old days when they had radios. My younger brother, he's got his own band and he rocks along. But it's just something sort of like, you know, you start singing in the car and then next minute you have a few beers and yeah, just one of those things. But I can't actually recall the first time I actually got on the stage, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I was drunk. And it sort of just rolled on from there, really. So.
It's amazing how you can stay on track while drunk and singing. It's a very good skill. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, usually, the drunker the audience gets, the better I sound, so.
And I don't drink that much, so you're good, neither. Man. You're fine.
Yeah, me neither.
Tony, you sent me some information about you, and I was really enjoying reading that. You've done a lot in life, so should I try, or should you give me some of the things that you've done?
You can try, mate.
So, at the moment, you are doing some work for New Zealand Defence Force.
Yep. So
is that through Navy? Is that how does that work?
Yeah. So
just bring the microphone a bit closer to you, my friend. You can stay there. Just
It's through the Ministry of Defence, and of course Navy's part of that. So not a lot of people know what I do for a real job. They think I run a charter boat and run wakakai, and that's a couple of things I do. But yeah, I contract to Ministry of Defence. I also contract to police, maritime police. And what I do basically for Navy is I'm an investigator, an engineering investigator. So I look at the equipment on all the ships up in Devonport, and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and looking at the obsolescence side of things. When that equipment is past its use by date, what I have to do is find replacement equipment and get installed through to the end of life of the ship that's involved. So we've got we've got 7 ships at the moment. We've just sold 2. When I'm not doing that, I'm on the police boat, Deodar, and I look after the engineering on that as well, make sure that things functioning and doing what it's supposed to be doing. And they've also got a couple of big 18-metre RIBs, big ribs, pursuit boats, and just have to make sure that those vessels are running to their fullest capability. So very busy time of the year. When I'm not on that, I'm looking after the Coast Guard boats down here, and yeah, everything seems to be revolving around boats at the moment.
But it was not like that before, right? You were more into the planes and the Air Force?
I left school, was on the farm for a couple of years till I was old enough to join the Army, and I joined as an infantryman, spent a couple of years there, and then I moved to military police as a transport, what they call a transport NCO, a non-commissioned officer, and I looked after a lot of the military police vehicles. From there, I transferred to the Army Air Corps in Australia, and worked on the helicopters. So did a lot of my engineering on that side of things. Came back to New Zealand, got out. I went back to the Army part-time, looking after a territorial company for a while. And basically from there, what did I end up doing? I ended up working for a mate of mine who was also in the Army. He was a truck mechanic, decided to start a truck shop. So I think he asked me to come and paint the floor, and I ended up working for him for a couple of years running a spare parts department. From there I went back to the Cook Islands, which is, I was born in Auckland, but Cook Islands is home for me. Dad still lives there. I've got my sister living there. I went back there for 7 years and I did my genealogy. So I went back there as a parts manager for a motor company on Rarotonga. And ended up moving to the general manager's role. So I had about 35 staff. From there, came back to New Zealand with my youngest boy, who's just about to turn 21.
Shout out.
that'll be a rage. Came back to New Zealand and carried on my aviation side of things. So worked on Cessna aircraft and Bell helicopters for quite a few years.
Okay, we got a few things there to unfold and tap into. I want to go back to your experience in Army. Was it something that you chose to go for? It came to you? How was the discipline side of things?
Well, look, it was. How old was I? I was 17.
Because it's not compulsory in New Zealand, right? In Brazil, you have to go for it. It doesn't mean that you will be selected to be part of it, but you have to go and put your name down. Yeah,
so you have to go through aptitude tests and things like that. And I still remember doing that in Auckland when I was a real young fella. Country boy, didn't know much about life. So they put you through an aptitude test, and I joined as infantry because at that stage I wanted to get a feel for how the Army worked. So, and I definitely don't regret going to infantry to start off with. Did a few trips around the world, and then was asked to, after 2 years with the infantry unit, was asked to join the MPs. So military police, do all your police, go back to your police college, you do everything. And I looked after a lot of the vehicles. It was just a hole that I fell into. And I've always loved vehicles, working on cars and doing all that sort of stuff. So I had cars and motorcycles and all sorts to work on. And then the opportunity came up to sign up. Well, I didn't sign up with Australia. I was still employed by the New Zealand Defence Force, but got posted to Fenton Airfield just out of Darwin with the Australian Army Air Corps. And so instead of walking around everywhere and driving around everywhere, I was flying around everywhere. It was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Better view.
Better view. A bit cooler sitting in the aircraft than it was driving around, that's for sure. So that was a good experience.
Man, the thing with the Army that I was a bit intrigued is because, like, it depends on where you're from. your perception towards what the army represents can be quite harsh in some countries that are always like into conflict, like, you know, involved with conflicts and stuff, like people, oh, the army, you know, like that. And then I watched the film from Made in New Zealand that it was shown. I don't remember what moment it was, but it was like the New Zealand army was taking these instruments, these musical instruments, to some people that were having conflicts and stuff. Like, so they were pretty much like in a peace mission, going to best fight. And then that helped me to create a better vision from like what you think that an army can be, because of course you got to protect your country. You never know what's going to come, but it doesn't mean that you're always trying to get into like the trouble part of things, you know, like you can be a pacifier in that. So that's why I asked your take on that.
So the Defence Force itself, Army, Navy and Air Force, we do a lot of humanitarian work. It's not all about going off and fighting wars and, you know, Afghanistan, Iraq, all that sort of stuff. There are support units there, of course, but we've got medics, we've got engineers, we've got doctors, we've got medical team, medical team, dentists, all that sort of stuff. And of course, you have to have logistics to get all that stuff there and get everything back, get everybody home safely. So the combined services itself, New Zealand itself has done a lot of good work all over the world. Bosnia, when the Bosnia conflict was going on, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Iraq. Sure, we had combat forces there, but a lot of them were doing policing. We had East Timor as well. A lot of work was done in conjunction with the United Nations, the UN, under UN command. So, as far as the modern day humanitarian requirements are concerned, we've had natural disasters. We've had the volcano in Tonga, as to where they ran out of fresh water. So 2 Navy ships went up there. They've got desalinators on them, which convert salt water to fresh water.
Whoa. How is that process?
How's the process?
Because that's one of the things that people always talk about. Right. Oh, we have so much salty water. Why we don't come up with something that turns that salty water into drinkable water? So that already exists.
It's existed for years. Yeah, it has existed for years. It's the volume that you put through and the equipment that's needed to do it. So basically, how it works is it sucks up filters all the salt water, and it goes through what they call reverse osmosis, and goes through carbon filters, all sorts of other filters. And what it does, it takes the solids, if you want to call it that, or the hard water, out of, and what you're left with is 99% fresh, drinkable, 99%. So some of it's suitable for bathing, cleaning, some of it's suitable for drinking with additional tablets and chemical tablets. So,
because there must be something like a lack of nutrients, I would say, or minerals, probably, right, is the best word to say.
Yeah, so depending on water's water. And, there's history's told us if you're thirsty enough, you'll drink salt water. It's no good for you, but look, it's a stain's life. So when that disaster happened up in Tonga, the 2 ships were there pretty quick. Of course, they need fuel, they need shelter. New Zealand's got a pretty good reputation for being able to deploy within 72 hours. And so part of my job with Navy is to make sure those boats are capable of doing that. I'm not the only one on the team. There's about a team of about 880 staff in Devonport Naval Base that I work with. So everybody's got their own job. So that's what we do.
Right. So people still have their full-time jobs when they are involved with such a thing, or there's a budget, there's a part of the government that like takes the money and makes sure that the people who are doing that.
I don't know so much about the money side of things. The training aspects and the capabilities. There's legislation, if you want to call it that, where the government expects the New Zealand Defence Force to be able to react in a certain time and provide services. Well, for us to do that, there has to be funding, there has to be equipment, and there has to be personnel. Probably the biggest issue we've got at the moment with New Zealand Defence Forces, our lack of enlisted personnel. So with Navy in particular, it's they're hurting at the moment. They've had a lot of people leave. The COVID thing, COVID, here we go again. A lot of people left during the COVID period. and haven't been replaced yet. But they are recruiting and they are training. So I'm pretty proud of our forces. Our air forces just got 4 new maritime aircraft. They've been using aircraft that are 50, 55 years old to do the job. So that they've done the hard yards using that old equipment, old antiquated equipment that has done a very good job. But these 4 new jets are going to do it better and a lot quicker.
Oh, definitely.
So saving more lives.
Who do we get it from usually?
The 4 new jets came from Boeing. They're called P8 Poseidons. They're a modified Boeing 737-800. At the moment, we've got a fleet of Hercules aircraft, C-130Hs, which are 52 years old, and they're going to be replaced in 2024 with another 5 extended, larger aircraft. They're our Hueys, our UH-1H Iroquois. We ran those things for almost 50 years, and they were replaced about 10 years ago. So, the Defence Force itself has done extremely well. Using the old equipment, and the stuff's it's beyond its use by date. So we're quite lucky as to where our naval fleet is relatively young compared to other naval fleets throughout the world. The average age of our vessels is 16 years. If we can get 30 to 35 years out of our vessels, then we're doing pretty well.
Before the show, you were telling me how New Zealand cares and looks after all these the islands, those countries, and not looks after, but it's kind of part of the territory. Can you take me through that again and the reason why New Zealand is involved?
So with the likes of Tokelau and Cook Islands in particular, and Niue, they've all got their own governments. They're self-governing, but they are New Zealand dependencies. So what that means is New Zealand is responsible for its defence as well as its welfare. So if there are disasters or anything like that happening, New Zealand is the first country to react. The Australians tend to look after Tonga a bit more, but we also look after Tonga and all those Pacific countries, with the exception of Tahiti, which is under French Polynesia. So the French look after Tahiti. They've got big bases there. And we look after them.
What are you mentioned natural disasters, things that happen that you can't control, but what are all the problems that can have, because you're out there, you're in the sea, and I'm sure that there's a lot of legal stuff going on. So what it's actually New Zealand paying attention to?
Well, they pay attention to everything. Disaster relief. It's a drop everything and go. There's other aspects of welfare as well, like fisheries patrols, search and rescue. Our search and rescue team 3 weeks ago went out and found 3 fishermen off Fiji. They've been drifting around for about 5 days, and by accident they found another boat as well. So these guys go out from the island, they go fishing. They don't have EPIRBs or anything like that. They should do, because they work up there. So it's a case of search and rescue. So they'll fly an aircraft from here to go up there and do the searches. And they're very good at doing what they're doing.
New Zealand seems to care about the marine reserves and the areas to protect the sea. Do New Zealand also play a part in does New Zealand also play a part in the islands?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the fisheries, because there's such a vast area of water in the Pacific Oceans, it's very hard for those respective islands to look after it themselves. Cook Islands itself, they've got 1 patrol boat and almost 2 million square miles of water that they have to protect. That's in their economic zone. So luckily they've got Tahiti that's quite close. So the French have aircraft up. New Zealand has aircraft up. You do get the odd aircraft coming down from Hawaii. And Australia has aircraft in the area as well. So surveillance itself, they'll go through, they can work out which ships are legit and which ships aren't. The ships that aren't legit, they end up getting boarded usually, 9 times out of 10. My time in the Cooks itself, I probably saw maybe eight vessels get arrested and brought into port. The people that came off those ships, fairly emaciated. They needed feeding, they needed medical attention, and the ships were just, these guys were orange from the rust inside the boats. And they're all different nationalities, not just Asian. There's Russian, and there's all sorts. Ships that shouldn't be out there, and you feel a little bit sorry for them, but they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing.
Can we call them like the pirates, kind of like that vibe? Well, like there's a bit of, because I saw a documentary that like there's a lot of slavery, a lot of like slave work and people doing this.
There is. So you can't really class them as pirates. If you go up to Somalia, up that African coast, I mean, there's pirates there. These guys aren't in skiffs going around trying to shoot people out of their boats or rip anybody off. They're just trying to make a living, and they're trying to catch fish and send money back home. Where that money gets back home, we're not quite sure. But they're stuck on a boat in the middle of the ocean, and they've really got nowhere else to go unless it's over the side. The pirates themselves, yes, New Zealand's been pretty effective in offering support to those up that African coast. The Navy boats have been up there on patrol, and there's also a land base up there as well, a naval land base. So the piracy themselves, there's two sides to the coin. There's fishing boats that are fishing illegally there, so they're taking, and I've spoken to Somalians, and their argument is, well, you've allowed these fishing boats into our waters, and they're fishing us out, and we've got no fish, so we have to make money somehow. And when they originally started boarding boats, they were boarding fishing boats, and then they worked out, well, we've got container boats here as well, we might as well do those as well. So it's a vicious circle. It's not always, none of these guys have got much. So no, they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. But they shouldn't have a reason to do it. I mean, if the navies that are up there got rid of all the fishing boats or just left that area alone for the locals, then it might be a different story.
What are the main problems when it comes to illegal fishing from what you've seen? What are we talking about?
It's just the overfishing. It's just the bluefin tuna. I think it's down to 3% of what it should be, and they'll end up stopping fishing when there's nothing left, or they'll target something else. So it's the same old ecosystem that balance, and it's humans that are doing it. If it was legit fishing, they can control it by quota. So you can take X amount of tons over this period, and that's it, no more. And if you take any more, you're going to lose your boat, or you're going to get a heavy fine. The illegal guys don't worry about that. They just take it. They take as much as they can get. So.
Where's the connection failing? Is it like is it people that maybe have too much power passing some laws or legislations that sometimes people can bend it, or because again, if you play with the legal condition, you can say that you're doing it legally. Yeah,
well, there's a lot of backhanders through respective governments and of different Pacific nations as well that are issuing licenses that they shouldn't be issuing and taking backhanders. And there has been, to my knowledge, one particular ex-Ministry of Fisheries who issued licenses out of the Cook Islands, who was found to be taking bribes. He got sentenced to 14 years for corruption. I think he did about 14 days. And then he got banished back to his own island, where he runs a tourism operation. So, go figure. Yeah.
What about... Thank you guys. Thank you. Making corruption legal. Congratulations. What about New Zealand? What about us? What about Aotearoa? Like, how do you see? I know that it's such a hot topic. It's always like, oh, the fishing, oh, the marine reserves. Oh, should we? Like now, 2022, coming to 2023. When you look back, when you look at the future, like where are we sitting? Is it a good position? Could it be better?
Oh, look, there's different factions of overfishing in New Zealand. Of course, there's the guys that will go out and they'll grab 100 power or undersized power or undersized crayfish. Those guys need to be dealt with. The recreational quotas, I think are too high. 20 finfish a day for one person, it's just too high. You don't need that. And I think if you're going to take more than that, you have to have a permit or a reason to do it. And by permits, it could be the local iwi issuing permits, saying, well, if you've got a tangi on or you've got something like this or a big party coming up, sure. But doing it that way, it's controlled. The illegal side of things, they've just got to get harder. The recreational quotas at the moment, I think it's 7 here. It's 30 centimetres, 7 snapper, 3 kingfish. 3 kingfish is far too much for one person to catch. So you get a boat of 5 guys. That's 15 fish out of the water, and they're big fish. They're not small. There's going to be, and if it carries on, there's going to be nothing left. On my charter boat itself, we have our boat quota. So it's 1 kingfish per person and 5 snapper, and 10 finfish per day. So it can be a mix of kahawai or anything. They can take 1 crayfish if we catch crayfish. That's it. And now, if they want more than that, they've got to go to our local kaumatua, Joe Davis, and get a permit, or out to see Earl Adams to get a permit. If they don't turn up with a permit, we don't let them take them. What
would be a case to get a permit? Like you said, like a special event?
It could be anything. It could be a special event. It could be a celebration. And it's not just restricted to Māori. Pākehā can go and get permits as well. I think we've had one instance where guys have actually come in and they've gone up and got a permit because they had a huge tangi on, just in Hauraki there. So, and that's fine. But unless it's just, and it's pretty hard seeing some charter boats coming in and they're taking 10, 15 fish off. It's just doesn't make sense to me, because there's going to be nothing left if it's not controlled. Luckily, those boats that we're doing that are gone, and we knew they wouldn't last long anyway, but that's fine. And there's sort of like a gentleman's agreement between all the skippers now that fish out of here, that we've got to sustain the environment. I don't necessarily think that fishing reserves work. All it does is it shifts the problem from one area to another. I think the best way to control it is quotas, having and being able to police it. DOC have got a couple of boats here. DOC are ultimately responsible for the reserves. You've also got MPI, but they do the whole peninsula. So they're pretty under-resourced, really. And they've got one boat, and the peninsula is a big place. We're a Coast Guard with 3 boats, and we do half the peninsula. Teams do the other side.
Is there anything in the marine reserve aspect that you like or you find it valid?
Yeah, I absolutely love being able to take people down and seeing the snapper at Gemstone Bay.
Those big ones.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's awesome. It's awesome. I think there was a lot of misconception about the proposal. There was a proposal that was coming out as to where they were going to close off quite a vast area of Mercury Bay, and I don't think that's the answer. I really don't think it is. I think it's reducing the quotas, making people more aware of what they're taking is not what they need. Sure, they may have to feed family, but just get a permit, just control it.
Are there regulations for game fishing as well?
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. Most of, and I know it's a hot topic, the game fishing tournaments, they bring a lot of revenue into Whitianga and the surrounding areas. Do I agree with the way it's handled? The only thing that really bothers me about the game fishing, from a safety perspective, and it's not just the game fishing, there's a couple of other tournaments that have done it. The shotgun starts, where they line all the boats up and they take off out of the harbour. That is bloody dangerous, and it's only a matter of time before someone gets killed.
Because they go quite fast, right?
Oh, yeah, it's like a drag race. And, legally, it's illegal to do it for a start, because, 50 metres, 5 knots. I sort of like, I wish they wouldn't do it, but that's the Coast Guard coming out of me, I suppose, as to where one of these days someone's going to collide and something's going to sink and someone's going to lose their lives. And usually it's one of us that's going to have to pick them up. That's the only thing that really bothers me about that. I think the catch rates that they have, they're releasing 90% of the fish they catch. I've never seen a dead marlin floating around. Usually they'll sink straight away anyway, but
because I think that's usually the argument of the other side, like the people who don't agree with it. They would say, "Oh, you're releasing it, but you already caused damage. You don't know if that fish is going to survive." So what's your take on that argument?
I think both sides have got valid points, and while I'm an avid fisherman and I absolutely love fishing, I do think that the people that are against it have got valid points. And it's look, we can sit here and go around in circles all day. I'm not really into game fishing too much myself. The only place I game fish is up in the islands, because it's a different species of fish. It's wahoo and it's mahi mahi. I'd rather catch tuna than catch a marlin, only because it tastes better. But so when I go out, I'm usually targeting tuna. And same old story. We'll only take one or two. We won't take
what's man? Excuse my ignorance, but because it was, and it's been a hot topic. And I work at the school, so a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, the school," and I'm like, I actually don't know. That's why I bring people to talk to. I talked to the people who opposed, but I'm so keen to talk to the people who are in for it, because I just want to understand what it is. Like, what is the international influence? Like, what is that a relationship with, like, overseas people coming for that?
Yeah, you've got the International Game Association that set up all the rules, and New Zealand sort of flies the flag under them. There are areas in the world where you can't game fish. It's illegal.
Like
states, certain coasts of the states, you can't take game fish. I think Hawaii, you can't take marlin or sailfish. There's a few other places as well on the other side of the states, but a lot of those places have been absolutely hammered. And look, if and it's the same old story. It's like when I got here, probably 7 years ago, I could go out and catch kingfish, dozen kingfish, and catch and release, keep a good one, bring one home. A little bit harder now, because a lot of those kingfish are gone. Yeah, they're not as prolific as they used to be, and I think when they reduced the quota on the crayfish for the commercial guys, sure, it was bloody hard on them. That's their livelihood. But I noticed after they reduced the quota, I think it was by 75%, you can still go out and put your pots down, but you're actually catching crayfish. Before that, you weren't catching anything.
Isn't it an interesting thing, Tony, that at the end of the day, even when you say, like, oh, those people are making a living, but, like, it's a society that allows us to have anything at any time?
Well,
isn't it weird? Like, in the past, like, you would wait for that season for the fruit. You would wait for that season for, like, and nowadays it's like, oh, it's out there. Like, we have it at all times, like it's a bit of a philosophical take on it, but, like, we have everything right now at all times, right? But
the problem is there's more boats on the water. There's more people recreational fishing. Commercial boats, they get the finger pointed at them, all the time. They do. I feel a little bit for those guys occasionally, because occasionally they're given the wrong end of the stick. They're given the rough end of the stick. And I mean, I've seen stuff in Auckland, commercial guys, 200 or 300, recreational guys with 200 plus snapper, undersized, and that's where the damage is happening. And of course they're doing it illegally, and they're getting persecuted for it. They're getting prosecuted for it. It's just a slap on the wrist. They might lose their boat. They might lose their vehicle. They'll be out with their mate next week doing the same thing.
Did you want to say something, Taylor?
Yeah, I would like to make a question, Tony. I've been seeing a lot of people around with contigs in the sand, sending
contigs.
Yeah, contigs. And you're talking about the limits. And sometimes I see these people throwing like 20 hooks, like inside, and you cannot control how many fish is coming back, right?
No, you can't. So.
What is it? Contigs, I'm sorry?
Contigs. So it's a little remote control torpedo sort of thing that drags a line out up to 2 kilometre. Very prolific in Matarangi. So they send it out, they bait them up, and they send the hooks out, and then leave it for an hour, and then the fish will grab the bait, and then they'll bring them back in. So they have 25 hooks.
Wow.
Legally. So there's two things you can do. You can get it back into the fish are still alive. Your undersized ones you obviously throw back in the water. Hopefully that happens. Or you have 2 or 3 people on the beach with you. So the limit per fish is 7 snapper per person over 30 centimetres. So whether that's happening, we certainly hope it is, but if you get caught with anything undersized, all you get is taken. So, and you know, when MPI are around, like I say, they're pretty under-resourced.
Is it, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is there people enough to do those rounds? It depends on the time of the year, or it's more about like the fear of like, oh, be careful, don't do it, but actually like police in Whitianga, sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't.
Look, it's the same old story. They're pretty under-resourced for the amount of coastline that we've got. So to give you an example, we ran Wakakai during COVID, the second COVID lockdown, and we were the only boat on the water because we're an essential service delivering out, and we're taking food out to boats that were offshore as well. It anchored up at Magri Bay because they had no food, they had no drinking water, so we had to take water out to them. Which was fine, but it was absolutely apocalyptic. There was nothing around, and it was a real eerie feeling to be the only boat on the water with nothing else around. So we ended up, we did a couple of deliveries down to Aotearoa, and we saw, on one particular day, we saw divers in the water who weren't supposed to be there. And we thought, okay, well, we'll just make a note of where they are and we'll give MPI a ring, because they're not supposed to be there. And when we came back, they're still in the water, so they're obviously harvesting. And they had a blue ute parked on the up on the farmland. We could see a blue ute. So we told MPI, didn't think anything else of it, and then MPI rang us and said, "Oh, can you, when you go down there again today, can you have a look, see if they're there?" Back there, sure enough, they were there. So MPI came over the hill and they caught them with 505 undersized paua. So 505, and they've been after these guys for a long time, and they nailed them. They got them. So look, it just. If you're going to be, if they're doing something illegal, they're going to be doing it when nobody's watching.
It has to be a lack of knowledge, man, as well, because you're just destroying the sea, man. You know. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's greed. There's no way they were going to eat 505 paua. They were selling on the black market, obviously selling on the black market, and we had the big pink mau thing as well. And I got in a little bit of trouble from that. MPI at that stage, the legislation wasn't there to protect the fish. And they were just, the excess taking of the pink mau was just unbelievable. They were taking hundreds of them, and what was that doing to the ecosystem? But they could legally do it. Legally, they could do it. There was a lot of resistance from, I got to take my hat off to the people in Aotearoa that were policing the ramps. These guys went from Aotearoa, ended up down in Whangamata. People from Whangamata, they were keeping an eye out as well. So me and all my wisdom, I decided to get photographs of all the registration plates and plaster them all over Facebook, because that's the only way they were going to stop. So I had a couple of skippers, one from Aotearoa, one from Whangamata, wanted to meet me with Joe Davis and talk about lifting the raui. So Joe was totally, and first thing that Joe said was, "I'm not lifting the raui because it's not going to happen." And one of the skippers saying to me, "Oh, you've just killed my business." And I said, "Mate, you're killing the ocean." I said, "How can you let this happen?" And he goes, "Oh, well, you putting up those registrations of those vehicles, those guys aren't turning up." And I said, "Well, it's work then." I did get a phone call from the police saying, "Oh, we've had a complaint that you're profiling Asian people." And I said, "I don't care whether they're Asians, I don't care whether they're Māori, Pākehā, Yugoslavian, whatever. If they were doing it, I'd be making a noise, and it was just one of those things that you just have to do it, bugger it, bugger the consequences." So I got spoken to by the police, but just said, "Well, can you take some of those photos down?" I said, "No, I'm not doing anything illegal." Just like them, I'm not doing anything illegal. So what I did have to do is there was a bit of hate speech coming through, and a bit of racism, so I had to delete those comments straight away, so I had to keep an eye on it. Hey, but it worked, and MPI got onto it, went through government, and now it's a protected species. So, did our job.
Man,
suffer the consequences.
Yeah,
got a slap on the wrist.
Man, you got.
But I don't care.
You've been to so many places. You've done so many things. I'm like, now that you mentioned the racism kind of thing, I was just thinking, you've traveled so much, and you lived in the islands for what, 7-8 years?
7 years in the Cook Islands.
My first thoughts where I wanted to go was like, I'm just curious about social differences between the Cook Islands and New Zealand. But now that you brought up this thing with like, different people, different like. I just want to take the conversation there a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, look, I've been fortunate enough to go just about to every Pacific island around. And look, the people haven't got much in those islands, but they're the most wonderful people in the world. They'll give you the shirt off their backs. They're so generous. They're so kind. Tongans, Samoans, Niueans, Cook Islanders, Tahitians. I've been through all those islands, and they're fantastic, great people. But saying that, I've done a lot in Southeast Asia. So I was based in Singapore for a while, and I've worked all those Indonesia.
Singapore is a made-up country, right? Like they built that. Like
it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Nice people. I think I've been to Italy, and I've seen the difference between northern Italy and southern Italy. Just the difference in people. England, Germany, absolutely love Germany. I was in Germany for quite a while. I fell in love with Germany, and then I went to Holland, and I really fell in love. Absolutely love the place. Fantastic people. Yeah, really, really good people. Yeah, I don't think I've actually been to a country where I haven't liked the people.
How was the welcoming to a New Zealander? Because there's this thing of Kiwis being welcomed everywhere and people love it. Did you feel that, or it was just like, nah, it was just another human?
Yeah, no, it was probably with the exception of the southern states. I was in Dallas for a while. That was a little bit different. I really didn't like Dallas that much. I was there for a while, and what I found was the further north you go in the United States, the friendlier the people got. So the closer you get to that Canadian border. So the last place I went to was Portland, Oregon. And I love the place. It was great. But the people were totally different. Not saying that the southern states, what I did see in the southern states was the amount of poverty, which was pretty hard to see, pretty hard to swallow. And, Dallas on this particular time, it was winter, a lot of snow, a lot of like sleet, freezing. And there's people on the street freezing, and that shouldn't be happening in a developed country. Just, I got told off for buying somebody a burger. Oh well, no, we don't talk to those people. What? The guy's hungry. Just stuff like that, and I couldn't quite comprehend it. There seemed to be a hierarchy, which was a difficult pill to swallow because I was a human being. In some countries I have been to, in some countries that I have served in. I don't know how people survive there. We hear a lot of people going on about, bloody Auckland, it's a whole traffic, blah, 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 blah. Well, go to some of these South Asian countries, man, and try living there for 6 months. Auckland's a paradise compared to... It is. I came back from Manila, and that place was just so hot. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievably hot, but very dirty, very gritty. A lot of corruption, quite a bit of crime. Nice people that we dealt with, that I dealt with, but I saw a lot in the background. A lot of begging, a lot of poverty that shouldn't have been happening. But then I flew back into Auckland. It was just like a breath of fresh air. It was unreal. Yeah.
What about Africa?
I haven't been to Africa yet, and I say yet because I do want to go. And I don't want to. I'm the sort of person that I don't like doing all the touristy things. I like getting in, seeing the back parts of every town. So, Las Vegas, went to Las Vegas, didn't go to a casino, went to the Grand Canyon, and then went to just a couple of local bars down the back streets of Vegas, which was cool. Met some neat people. Hawaii, the same. Went into Honolulu, ended up at a beach, an Airbnb up on a beach on the west coast, just the locals. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, just hired a bike or Harley, and then got to have a Harley when you're in Hawaii. So I was lucky enough to do that. So yeah, just doing things a little bit differently, and sort of like it's okay to see all the touristy stuff, but yeah, it's not really me.
It's not a
No.
man. You do something that Wow, it's just amazing. It just amazes me how the Coast Guard thing, it's all made by volunteers. You
It
know?
is.
That was something that when I came to New Zealand, I realized, and I had this conversation with different people, and they explained to me, like, because I was always thinking about the firefighters as well.
Yeah.
You know, like volunteers, and I'm like, why? And then people tell, well, small places, you know, it's very hard to fund some services, so you have the volunteers. And then reading about the Coast Guard, I was like, wow, and it's been on for years, such an essential
It has been.
job, such an essential thing. How did you get into that?
How did I get into Coast Guard? So, I had my commercial skipper's license. So when I took a bit of sabbatical from Defence Force, and when I decided to move to Whirianga, so I bought myself a boat, and I was out fishing all the time. And my nephew, Gene Denton, he was one of the local cops here. And I think, surprising enough, we were drunk. And he goes, I wouldn't mind getting my skipper's license. And I said, yeah, maybe we should do, because we're out fishing all the time in our own boats, and it'd be great to get somebody else to pay for the gas. And that's how the conversation started. But what I did notice was there's quite a few charter operators happening. There's probably 6 or 7 boats operating here. And I was down the wharf one day, and I heard a conversation as to where a couple of locals were talking, and they're talking about, you know, they would love to get on a charter, but all the charters were booked by people from overseas, Australians, Canadians, Americans, and the locals couldn't get on the boats. There was like a 2 or 3 month waiting list to get on these boats, and then it was all weather dependent. And I actually said to my nephew, I said, we should get a couple of charter boats. And he said, oh, yes. So anyway, we took the bull by the horns, went down, sat our skipper's licenses, and got them, and bought a boat each. And we still sort of like work together pretty closely. Have to, because he's my nephew. Don't tell him that. No, and we sort of like, we've never looked back. So, but it was to support the locals and support the people that couldn't get on the boat. So we both sort of made a decision to take local bookings only. And we weren't marketing into Australia. It was solely New Zealand. So we didn't do much. We didn't have many Aussies on. The other guys could deal with all that. That was fine. They can go and do what they want to do. And it was great having the Aussies here, but then COVID hit. Bang. The Aussies stopped. And we were the only boats operating. So even when they lifted the restrictions on water, we already had our clientele, our base set up. So we were flat out. As soon as COVID got lifted, Wakakai finished, and then the charter boat started. And we already had our clientele, and we're both still pretty busy.
Do you advertise exclusively for locals, or is it just something that comes to you because you advertise locally?
I think we're the only, through the Informer, I write the fishing columns every couple of weeks, and we get a quarter-page ad, and that was something that the previous owner set up. I didn't ask for it. He just said, send me a photo and I'll do an ad for you, give something back to you, which is fine. So they've carried it on with the new owners. I just sent them a report today, actually. So that was cool. And then Facebook on the local pages. So we look after, we take photos and we send them around Hahei, Cooks Beach, Matarangi, Whangapoa. Around the peninsula, we advertise Pairua, teams in Pairua as well. Just that sort of local area, but we're getting clientele from the South Island. We're getting a lot of recommendations, we have a lot of recommendations, and we have a lot of people from the deep south, quite a few from Wellington. Probably the only place we don't get a lot of people is Nelson. There's a lot of charters there. So, yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so we just, look, it's not easy work. I'm quite lucky I've got 2 very good skippers that run my charter boat. I can just give them the keys and go, you got a charter on, go and do your thing. Yeah. I still get out there and do my own thing, because it's, you're the face of the business, and this is our 5th season. This is season number 5 for us now, and we haven't looked back. We're going pretty good.
Man, what are the most common problems that you see as a Coast Guard volunteers? Where do people make the biggest mistakes?
A lot of our tows are non-agent call-outs are mechanical breakdowns. They could be flat batteries, fuel, lack of fuel. Now, unfortunately, Whitianga has got a pretty bad reputation for fuel being siphoned out of boats and cars, as you know. So what will happen is the guys will go and fill up their boat the night before, leave it on the trailer. Someone will come along and siphon the fuel out. The guys don't actually know. They think they've got a full tank, because the way a lot of the modern fuel gauges work on boats at the moment is it tells you how much fuel you've used by how much fuel the engine burns. It doesn't actually give you a level in the tank. So if the engine's not started and they go and suck 80 litres out, you think you've got 80 litres when you've only got 20. You know, they won't get the whole lot out. And of course you go out in your boat and, it stopped. That happens quite a bit. So we sort of like, in some of those fishing reports that I do, I tell people to secure their boats at night or fill them up in the morning.
So people take the fuel, that's the main thing.
That's one of them. Lack of maintenance is the other thing. You know, guys will store their boats for 6 months of the year, 8 months of the year, and won't start them. And that's the worst thing you can do for them. It's like a car. If you don't start a car, it's not going to last. So you have corrosion, you have things seizing. Fuel contamination. The fuel does get contaminated. You get water in the fuel, condensation, especially with steel tanks, old fuel. There's that. There's weather. A lot of people go out and it looks great when they're going out, and they'll get all the way out to Devil's Point and weather can change just like that. And if you don't know how to read the weather, it's not a good idea. So we have a few weather issues. Have a lot of people in kayaks getting blown offshore. Westerly, they run out of strength and they can't get back on shore. With people on stand-up paddleboards, quite a lot of people. We have fishermen on rocks getting swept off. Not so much on this coast, but our area goes from Castle Rock right up to the top of the peninsula. So we've got a huge area, but there's a lot of rock fishing further north.
Do we still see big numbers for people drowning?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
We do. So unavoidable drownings for the whole of last year was avoidable drownings for the whole of last year was 77 people that didn't need to drown. This year, and the year's not over yet, the season hasn't happened, we're up to 98.
How you determined what is an avoidable drowning from one that is not? The distance, the condition?
Well, it's basically based on the coroner's reports. People not wearing life jackets, boats flipping on bars. It happens all the time. It happens too much, and a lot of it's. This comes back to there's no licensing for boats, so anybody in this room can go and buy a boat tomorrow, put it in the water, and take off and do what they want to do.
Is it the same in most countries around the world? Do you know?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Funnily enough, so Singapore in particular, your boat has to be registered, and they have to carry what they call an AIS, which is an identification beacon. So their military they know what boats are in the harbour the whole time. If you get caught without that AIS on, you're in a lot of trouble. You get arrested. In Australia, your boats have to be registered, and you have to have a licence. So if you go out and get on your boat and get drunk and get pulled over by the water police, you can lose your boat, you lose your car, you lose your boat licence, and you lose your car licence because they're connected. And the only way they can control that is through having boats registered. You have to have a licence as well. So to get your licence, you have to go and sit a course. So it's pretty strict over there.
And in New Zealand, you just lose your afternoon.
New Zealand, you do what you want. And that's the mentality, unfortunately. We've been out on Coast Guard calls where guys are so drunk they can't even talk, they can't even speak. It's sort of like, what are you doing out here? It's crazy. It's crazy. When Pat was still alive, Policeman Pat, he used to sit on the ramp, have his coffee, sit on the ramp, see a bunch of drunk guys come in, and he'd breathalyse them at the ramp, saying, well, if you're going to drive that vehicle from there to here, you might be in a bit of trouble. And he'd be really good, but he was sending the message. And you'd see those same guys again, someone would stay sober. Because he led them off with a warning the first time, but the second time he wouldn't. So, and that's pretty good.
Man, it's a big thing in New Zealand. I've been here for 9 years, and it's just. I think it's in a lot of countries, but like when it's more like tough, the punishment.
Yeah.
You know, like for example, I always hear German friends say, "You lose it for years, like you cannot get a license again."
Yeah.
And here in New Zealand, there's always this thing of like, no, it's all right. I'm just going there. I'm just, and like we have all these windy roads around here.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, without legislation, without having vessels, and it's already started with jet skis. Jet skis have to be registered in certain areas. I think the exception is Canterbury at the moment, but that's changing. So your jet skis have to be registered, and you can be fined if you don't have a registration number on your jet ski displayed. You still don't need a license. So, I mean, you might get a fine, $250 fine for speeding. You know, you might run somebody over as well. And jet ski accidents.
Why do you think it's still like that? It's like New Zealand is surrounded by water. Is one of the main things that the Kiwis do is loving the water sports and all these things.
I think the way things are going, and if that, I mean, they're talking about, the Road to Zero campaign, which they'll never get in a million years, not in this country. Not the way
What is it? What is that?
Oh, the Road to Zero. It's the zero fatalities on our roads. We know it's not going to happen. If they put the same effort into, Road to Zero, well, same thing for the maritime side of things, it might reduce that 97 per year, or 877 per year. It might reduce it. I don't know. I mean, how many people have to drown before it gets changed?
And for you guys, as volunteers, having to deal with all this drama, how does it play in the mental health side of things?
Look, we're not Coast Guard. We're not policemen. People think we're policemen. Oh, that guy's speeding over there, or he just about cut me off. We've got no power on the water. We can't do anything. We could go and recommend, would you mind slowing down? But they don't have to listen to us. We're an ambulance. We're an ambulance on the water. We're a rescue facility. We don't do salvage. So if someone's boats, if they're on if they get picked up by another boat and their boat's drifting towards rocks, we're not obliged to go out there and try and save their boat. That's not what we do. That's a harbour master's job. That's his role. He goes and does it. He's got the boats that are set up and equipped for it. Our boats are set up for towing. We can tow, but there has to be someone on that second boat to assist us, or we've got to be able to put someone else. So, if it's safe enough, we'll go and recover a vessel. But while we're recovering that vessel, something else could be happening somewhere else. And we've had instances where a couple of years ago we had a couple of kayakers go missing up at Whangapawa. 6:30 in the morning, we got called out. So they were overdue. So we raced up there, found them on the rocks. They were just tired, cold. Just as we got to them, we got a message for a boat on fire at a place called The Hook, which is about 12 miles away. So we had to leave them there, make sure they were okay, spin around, race out to the boat that was on fire. By the time we got there, they got the fire out. We started towing them back. As we're towing them back, a boat flipped in Cathedral Cove with a whole lot of kids on board. So we had to drop that boat, come back, and luckily one of the tour boats had picked that person up. As that happened, a car went off the road down the end of the rugby field and into the tide, and no one saw anybody get out, so we assumed that the person was still in the car. And as that was happening, a big vessel ran aground up the waterways and jammed the waterways, and so we were everywhere. It was like Spider-Man. We were everywhere at once. It was a long day. It was about 13 hours. Hence the reason we've got another rescue boat and more crews. How's it play on your mind?
That beer at the end of the day was the best one ever, eh?
Oh, yeah, it was. So the Whitianga unit itself, it's very well structured. So we have a standby crew as well. If we get fatigued, then a standby crew will come on. We've got a second boat now. Thanks to Lotto and thanks to the America's Cup, we've got a second boat, so we can get a second crew in the water. So we can send two boats different places. We've actually got a third boat as well, which is a lot smaller that can't tow, but if needed, it's there. Coast Guard training itself is quite vigorous. It probably takes a couple of years to be competent. operating a rescue boat, and that's if you put your mind to it and dedicated to it. From the mental health side of things, we have counsellors. Some of the things we have to do is pretty gruesome. Injuries, people that get injured, body recovery, and unfortunately we've had to do quite a few of those over the years.
Have you been to any of those situations?
Several. Yep. I've seen it in another life, so it doesn't favour me. We have had guys struggle with it though, and it's normal.
Did you say that you have seen it in? Sorry.
I've seen it in a previous life, in my military life. Yeah. So yeah, I've served in a couple of countries that weren't quite that nice. So yeah, I'm sort of like used to that. But it's the same old story. You never get used to it because everyone's different.
Do you remember the first one when you were serving in the military? What country was it?
Bosnia.
Bosnia.
Yeah.
Conflict, or you was rescuing some like? Was it?
We were over there. I was part of the UN then. So yeah, but we saw some horrible things there. Yeah.
Bosnia. What year was that?
Oh, 80. No, it wasn't. It was 91, I think. 91, 92, 93. I can't remember.
Young man, Tony, going on a full-on mission.
Yeah, I was... first time I jumped out of an aeroplane, I was 17 and a half. It's when the Fiji military coup was on, and we were Ready Reaction Force, and I'd just come out of the cadets. So I was an infantryman, and I was on an airfield in Wairau, and back then they had what they called an Andover aircraft, and we were going to be airlifted and airdropped into Fiji to secure the airport. So I was only a young guy. I'd only been in the army 6 months. Just finished my basic training and core training, and I was busy taking tracer rounds out of a machine gun round. I was a machine gunner back then, and did a lot of growing up in 72 hours.
Oh, I bet.
Aged probably about 10 years. I don't know how we got stood down, luckily, but we were on our way. They flew us into Niue and then turned us around and brought us back. So only a young guy, but
when you're there, when you see it, does it all make sense when you hear those stories of guys who have trouble like years after being conflicted?
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, look, and it's not just being a soldier. It's not just being a serviceman or anything like that. I've got mates that are ambulance drivers that set once too often, and it changes them, and they take a break. I've seen Coast Guard guys who I thought could handle things, and they can't. You know, and that's fine. That's fine. If they can't handle, they're better off getting out of it. The fireys that we've got here in Whitianga, they see some horrific crashes. You know, geez, and they've got to deal with some real bloody rubbish stuff. The Westpac guys that are here. You know, so it's not just us, and it's not just, you know, there's nothing to be ashamed of by standing down, you know, by standing down. I've been on jobs where I've been physically drained, not mentally drained, but physically drained, and then we've had another job the next morning, and I've said to the operations manager, I'm standing down. I'm too tired. I'm going to be a liability, you know. And they appreciate that, and that's part of your training. You do fatigue training, you know, where you may not have, you know, you've gone and done a job and you haven't slept because you've been wide awake. The adrenaline's still going. You might get an hour's sleep, then your pager goes off. So you've got to go and tell your operations manager, I'm standing down, get somebody else. But that's part of the training, being able to manage that. We're very lucky as we've got good social workers as well, and it may be totally unrelated to Coast Guard. It could be family issues. It's good to be able to talk to somebody, you know. And we're all a pretty close unit too. All that the banter that happens in that place, you know, it's a bit of a relief, and it's happened right the way through my career. It's sort of like happened, you know, from being a soldier. Yeah, someone once told me that you know, you're always seeing things through rose-coloured glasses, and I never sort of like click what it meant. But it was just I asked him years later what he actually meant by that, and he just goes, "Oh, nothing seems to bother you." And I said, "You'd be surprised what bothers me." You know, I said, "Yeah, you'd be absolutely surprised what bothers me. Blood and gore doesn't bother me. Seeing people starving bothers me. Seeing people addicted to drugs bothers me. I've seen people change, and I've lost good mates. I've almost lost a child to drugs, and luckily she's come out the other end. And that's hard. That's reality. I had to go and talk to somebody about that, about my daughter, and it made a lot of sense. I sort of like feel a lot. I don't think I would have. I probably would have handled things a little bit differently if I hadn't spoken to this person. Yeah. So helps there. And look, I'm not 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I don't think anybody is. Not much scares me. Not much surprises me these days. Seen a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have seen at a young age. But hey, that's why I'm a Whirianga, so I don't have to sort of like worry about that anymore. I sort of like look at what I ascertain my skills as a commercial skipper and being in the Coast Guard is I'm able to put those skills to good use and help people, And I've got a lot of admiration for people that are volunteers, that give their time, and it's thankless time, really, And there's a lot of people, the community watch, the people that go around in those vehicles. How much crime would there be if they went around? You don't know. Probably a lot worse. Yeah. There's a lot of little bloody mongrels out there, but yeah.
I was thinking here, to wrap up, what would be a good way to tell people to support this, the Coast Guard, the Westpac, but actually, of course, we can talk about that, but I think the best support you can give to people is to look after yourself, to pay attention to what you're doing, right? When you're going out there in the water, when you're turning that key in the car, it makes more sense than actually donating to do, like, just avoid things.
I mean, I'd rather go out to a call out and it'd be a false alarm. Our boat's sinking. Well, it's not sinking, it's just a bit of rainwater in the bottom. I'd rather do something like that. And no one's going to persecute anybody for that. Or if we get all the way out there and their engine starts. And that happens all the time. And I said, okay, well, we'll shadow you back. We'll go alongside in case it cuts out again. And there you get the odd person where, I filled the bloody thing up yesterday and there's no way I'm out of fuel. Well, you are out of fuel. Someone siphoned your tank. It's an education thing. So, my best advice for people is, just make sure you take every precaution. Make sure you got your life jackets on. If your boat flips, you're not going to have time to put a life jacket on if it's stowed away. Make sure you can find your life jacket, because I've pulled up to plenty of boats with my policeman's helmet on and said, show us your life jackets, and they take half an hour to find them. They're pulling stuff out, and they're supposed to be accessible.
You don't want to find the body and the life jacket next to each other, eh?
Yeah, well, I've obviously probably not so much here, but I've been on jobs where guys have had fluoro vests on, thinking that they're not life jackets. They look like life jackets, but they're not. But the workman's vest. So it's all the boys from one of the road gangs, and they jumped on their mate's boat, and we'll put this on, and because we might be back a bit late, so we want to be visible. The only thing those things do is help us find the bodies.
Wow.
And it happens. We've done night patrols. We're not in Coast Guard, but from a policing perspective, we've done night patrols and found people out there with fluoro jackets and all that sort of stuff on. No life jackets. I said, it's not going to save you. It's not going to keep you afloat. Yeah, it's happened. It's some crazy stuff. Yeah.
Have a look, hey people. If you're not too sure about what to do out in the water, just go to karaoke and catch up with us there.
Yeah. It's far safer. And learn to read the weather. By all means, go into a Coast Guard course. There's a boat masters course which is very good, for everybody, and that'll teach you the fundamentals. For God's sake, just don't go out there, turn the key, and think you're going to be safe, because you're not.
Not Superman.
I got told one time that the ocean's like an untamed horse. You don't know when it's going to kick you or bite you, but when it does, it usually happens pretty quick. So yeah.
Tony, top 3 karaoke songs to finish. First one.
Have you got the soundtrack?
You don't have to sing, but your top 3. Come on, boom.
My favourite top 3. A bit of
off the bat.
One of my favourite ones would probably have to be Yinglebeck Humperdinck.
Nice.
What's that song he sings? Can't even remember the name of it. After the Loving. That's a good song. I like a bit of rock. I like a bit of Billy Joel. I went and saw Billy Joel in concert. He was fantastic.
Good show?
Yeah. He didn't ask for my autograph though, so I was a little bit disappointed. What a showman. Yeah. Any Billy Joel song. I quite like those. And a bit of the Beatles as well. I like a few of the Beatles music. So all the old stuff.
All the old stuff.
All the old stuff.
Finish with my woman, 'cause she... I love when you sing that one, must say. When you put that Black Sabbath out there, I'm like, off we go.
Oh, Ozzy Osbourne, eh? I'm here to please.
Thank you so much.
No
My
worries.
friends, well, I'll see you around. I'll see you in one of those crazy jam nights.
Yeah, I'm...
Up for a good summer?
Yeah, I'm pretty busy. I'm back in Auckland tomorrow. So I'm on the naval base tomorrow. Police boat on Wednesday. Back on the naval base Thursday, Friday. Hopefully home Friday night. Fingers crossed.
Friday night.
And then we've got Wakakai starting on Saturday. So
Fun.
yeah, I might get a bit of sleep in between that.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, and then I think I'm on Coast Guard duty the weekend after. Anyway,
Busy, man.
busy. Keep busy. Keep your mind healthy.
That's it. Thank you so much, Tony. That was good, man.
No
So
worries.
informative. Good chat.
Wow, awesome. You're most welcome.
We'll bring you back.
Yeah.
I'm sure you got so many more stories, so we'll definitely
where
do
do you
that.
start?
Thanks, team. Appreciate it. And for you guys watching us at home, we're live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. We're back on Wednesday with Daddy Connell, our local counselor who started the Seagull magazine. She's got a bunch of cool stories to share. I'll see you there. Peace.